Let me go.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So yeah, so there's a few people coming in now. Shabar Saeed, welcome. I'm just Srija is here as well, so they're all coming in now. Let's just wait for them all to come in. Hello, everybody. We'll just wait a few minutes until you all get comfortable. And it looks like we've got a lot of people tonight, so keep coming in. And if you are here, we'll start in probably 2 or 3 minutes, so you've got time to go and grab a coffee and get comfortable. I'm just sitting here having a chat with Ryan. So we've got 2 or 3 minutes before we get the ball rolling, so just make yourself comfortable. So I've got some familiar faces there. Hi everybody, Asanga, Chandra, Jay, Madhavi, Maurizio, Priya. Maurizio, hope that Achilles tendon is healing. Rajitha, Shaba, Srija, welcome. Okay, and there's quite a few more coming. So we'll just wait a little bit longer, and if you have any questions you want to post, you can just type into the question box in the meantime. I'm happy to have a little bit of a chat before we kick off. Still coming in, that's good. Just make sure I turn my phone off. And we might get started. Okay, there'll probably be a few latecomers, but that's okay. They can just join us when they arrive. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Meet Success webinar. This is our second in the series, and tonight's guest panelist is Ryan Goddage, or as he's now known in Australia, Ryan Goddage, who is a banking administration specialist. So welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, Jay.
We'll get back to Ryan in a moment. I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping things in the meantime, just to make sure everybody's clear about what's going on. If you haven't attended a webinar before, I'll just explain how the control panel works. You have that in front of you now. Simply type in the box that says type question here and press send or press enter, and your question will be posted to me, and I'll see that. And please, I encourage you to post questions. We want this to be interactive. So Ryan's ready to take all your questions, and I can answer some as well if they're directed at me, but most of this evening will be about Ryan, and post your questions there. So you can do that at any time. You don't have to wait until the end of the session. In fact, it's probably better if you start doing it during the session, so I can sort of manage how these questions are going to be posed and try and feed them in a logical way. We might jump around all over the place tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about Ryan from a personal perspective and the immigration and settlement process, and also from a professional perspective about his job and his industry here. So please post some questions, and that way you'll get what you want from the session as well as us just talking. Now, If that control panel is too large, it's taking up too much of your screen, simply click on the arrow here in the orange box, and that will minimize your control panel so you'll just have the toolbar. And that will give you more space to see the presentation. Tonight's presentation is mainly questions, so there's not a lot of graphics. It's mainly a conversation and questions, so it's not that interesting. But if you want more space, just minimize it by clicking on the arrow in the orange box. If you want to expand it again, simply click on the arrow again and it will expand into the control panel and you'll be able to type your questions again. Okay, now people are still coming in, that's good. What we're going to do is we're going to kick off with a poll. Now I've got a few questions, a couple to start with. So let me just launch the first one. This is a pretty simple one. So where are you? I want you just to choose one of those options there, in one of the states in Australia, or are you overseas? So I'll just let everybody have a bit of time to post that, and then I will show everybody. We've got still a few more people. We've got 60%. Come on, just click in any one of those. It's Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, or the 5 options there: South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania, ACT or Northern Territory, and the last one overseas. Okay, let me share this with everybody to see what the result is. Okay, interesting. So most people are local, 70% in Victoria, and 10% overseas. Okay, nobody in New South Wales. Interesting. Okay, that's helpful for me. I won't go any further deeper into where overseas, so let's just move on. Okay, the next one. What's your profession? So if you could just select one of these, please. This will help us perhaps direct the conversation a little bit better. So if people are from accounting, finance, banking, administration, so this is what Ryan is going to be talking about mainly, or engineering, IT, science and academia, or other. If you could do that, that would be great. And I think just about everybody is in. So let me just close the poll. If you want to do it, just give you another 2 seconds to enter your vote. Okay, I'll close the poll there. Let's share that information. Great. Okay, so we have a lot of people from the accounting, finance, banking and administration area. That's great. And quite a few from IT, and some from engineering, and some from science and academia and other. All right, so we won't be solely talking about accounting, finance, banking, administration, but most of the conversation will be directed to that, at least from the professional side anyway. So let's hide that. And let's get rid of those polls. We don't need those anymore. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, Ryan, so welcome. We're going to jump around a little bit, but I want people to know what you do first of all. So can you just tell me what your job title is, please?
Well, yes, Terry. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. My job title is Banking Administration Specialist.
Okay.
And basically it's a finance officer role, and being mainly responsible for payments and reconciliations and some month-end reporting.
Okay. And what does your typical day entail?
Yeah, my typical day. My company, what my company basically does is, collect debts on behalf of its clients. So for some clients, we have agreed to remit funds daily. So I start off my day with generating some reports from the system and then entering those remittances into our payment platform, which is ANZ. And then I do bank reconciliations, and in the afternoon session mostly I uh, do cash flow analysis, which is one of my daily tasks, preparing cash flow and send it to the FP&A team, and then I transfer some funds from, we have got a dedicated legal company. I transfer funds from that legal company trust accounts to our trust accounts, and
Okay.
those are more or less what I do on a daily basis.
So do those days' activities change over the week, or are they pretty much a set day every day in that order?
They are pretty much set every day, Terry. That's what I'm expected to do on a daily
Yep.
basis.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't change much here.
Cool. Okay. And when did you come to Australia, Ryan? How long have you been here?
Well, I've been here now nearly 4 years. Came here in August 2011.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what did you know about Australia before you came?
To be quite frank, not a lot, Terry. I had, I had inquired some of my friends before coming here, and then I got to know about Seek, because what I had initially asked them was, how I could find a job once I come here. So they had mentioned the name Seek and mycareer.com.au, and that's about it basically.
Okay. And why did you choose Australia as your immigration destination?
Well, when it comes to migrating, I didn't have a lot of choices. I mean, that is, I think, more or less true for anyone coming from our country, Sri Lanka. It could in 9 cases out of 10 would be Australia, or sometimes it might be Canada. But I didn't want to go to Canada because they had a bit of a severe winter, as I heard it. But Australia doesn't.
It's a little bit colder over there, I believe. Yeah.
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 It is much colder, as I heard, and then Australia doesn't have that sort of a terrible winter. Then naturally I went for Australia.
Sure. And you're in Melbourne now, so was this by choice, or did you have to come here, or were there people you knew here already?
Well, that's the reason, Terry. Victoria has quite a lot of Sri Lankan population, and here I have got quite a few close personal friends as well. So it was the obvious choice for me, because I was going to stay with one of my friends. Because I didn't want to pay rent as soon as I came here. Yep. So that Victoria was the natural choice for me, as I was saying, because of my friends and some general Sri Lankan population, because I knew I was not going to feel, yeah.
Sure. Okay. So I've just noticed more people are coming in, so please feel free to post questions. Junaid has just posted a comment. If you have any questions, please just post them and we'll answer them as we go along. So for some people, it can take quite some time to find work. How long did it take you to find your job?
Well, it took me 9 months, Terry. I came here, as I was saying, I came here in August 2011, and I as soon as I came here, I started applying for jobs.
Right.
But believe it or not, I didn't even get one single call, neither from company, not even from an agent, for the first 6 or so months. No one single phone call, because now on reflection, I know I didn't have any local experience. Mm-hmm. So that should have been the key reason. And then I started volunteering, and I started some casual jobs, and eventually after about 9 months I got my first call from an agent, and then that helped me start find my foot around here.
Sure. Junaid's just asked a question. He wants to know, at what time during that 9 months did you meet me, Terry?
I met Terry at Collingwood. I think it was October, Terry. I think it was October 2000.
So you'd been here for how long?
I was here for 8 or so months, I guess.
And then you, after 8 months, we met, and then it took you another month or so to find work. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Terry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think, see, everybody's wanting to know how long it's going to take them. So it's different for everybody, and over the weeks we'll interview many different people, and the experiences would be different for everybody as well. So yes, you found a job within a month or so. That's right.
Yeah, quite right, Terry. Yes.
Okay. Good. You mentioned before you had interviews. How many did you have? Do you remember?
Before I landing a job, I had, as I was saying, I had my first interview. That was around, I think, May 2012. I had an interview with one of the Michael Page agents, and he didn't have a specific job because I was working for Melbourne Health that time. He was interested in me. And then he offered me an interview, and then I went and talked to him, and then he was impressed of my qualifications and exposure. And then after about 2 weeks, he had referred me to one of his colleagues, and then he was the one who found me that job in Dun & Bradstreet, because that my current job. This is a job I hadn't even applied for. That particular agent found that job, and then he asked me whether I was interested in working for a temporary. It was a temporary casual contract then.
Right. Okay.
Then I said yes.
Yeah.
I wanted, grab whatever opportunity that came in my way. I didn't want to say no, and then he found me that job.
Sure. I'll just
to answer this question, it was actually. But yeah, I had another interview, but the answer should be 2 interviews. I was lucky enough to get my first job after 2 interviews. I had another very short-term contract with United Petroleum that was for just 2 weeks.
Right.
So yeah, I had just 2 interviews before landing my first job.
Okay. Another question has come through, again from Junaid. People want to know how effective recruiters are as opposed to employers directly. So what was your experience? How many interviews did you get through recruiters and then eventually with employers? Did the recruiters do their job for you? Were they helpful?
Yeah, definitely, Terry, definitely. Because in my personal experience, I have had I think over 10 agent interviews, and out of those agent interviews, they have fixed me 5 company interviews. But I was not able to get that job. That's a different thing. But I do recommend talking to agents and trying to forge a bit of a relationship with agents, and they could definitely help, right?
So just more on that, because that's not everybody's experience. So it's interesting to hear somebody who has had success with an agent. What do you think it was that enabled you to build a rapport with the agent? Why did they work for you, and maybe not some other people, do you think?
I'm kind of surprised to hear that agents don't work. As I was saying, Terry, in my personal experience, I have had quite a few interviews, and we have fixed company interviews, and yeah, it was kind of surprising to me that if someone claims that they don't believe in job agents, or they don't believe in finding a job through job agents, that's kind of surprising for me, actually.
Okay. A question from Domingo. Have you changed jobs? In your experience, is it easier to find a job after having local experience? So we probably should explain, you did an unpaid work placement, is that correct?
Yeah, I was paid $30 a day.
Right, okay.
When I was working for Melbourne Health, which Terry and team helped me get, I was paid just $30 a day, and I was working for Melbourne Health for 3 months, just a little over 3 months, and that was the crucial point here. Once I entered the Melbourne Health experience in my CV, that is the turning point for me. Then only agents, became interested in my CV, and then only I started, receiving phone calls. When I was working for Melbourne Health, I would get about, minimum two phone calls a day from agents, though, and eventually that's what helped me, find my first job.
Good. Okay. So some people might need to consider perhaps doing an unpaid or a very minimally paid work placement in order to get a job. So the questions come through, is this the placement, the first job Ryan is talking about? This was for how long was the placement?
That was for, in my case study, 3 months.
3 months, okay. So this
yes.
This is not the job you have at the moment. The job you have at the moment is with Dunn and Bradstreet?
Bradstreet, yeah, that's correct. Because but that work placement job was as I was saying, the turning point. That was what helped me land this job. And even if it's without paid area, I would very strongly advise, doing some work and get some local experience into your CV.
Yep.
Without having local experience, it would be virtually impossible, in my opinion,
right,
to find a job. Job agents they wouldn't be, interested in your CV if you don't have local experience, unless you have very strong globally recognized qualifications, such as SAP experience.
Right. Okay.
A good SAP, a good couple of years SAP experience or Oracle, something like that. It's unlikely that job agents would call you for an interview, even for an interview. Never mind finding you jobs.
Sure.
Local experience is absolutely vitally important.
Okay. Look, Jay has just asked a question. Jay has asked, do you think it is good to have a CV done by a paid consultant, so somebody else to help you with your CV?
I have never tried that one, Terry. Your team at Collingwood gave us the A's and B's of CVs, and that was immensely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did my own research online as to there are ample websites. If you Google how to prepare a good CV, there will be thousands of websites, and you can go through and you can get some ideas. But the current CV I am having is probably that would be maybe different altogether. You can use your common sense, you can use your experience. Your CV doesn't have to comply with any particular rule. There's no hard and fast rule. As long as you can communicate what you want to communicate, that's what counts.
Yeah, good point.
In my CV,
yep.
I have got a summary on the very first page. I have got my summary where I have worked, who I worked for, what system I have used. When a recruiter or a company person looks at my CV, he doesn't have to refer anything else. At a glance, he can get what they want to know.
Sure. Okay. I think your point about communicating is the key. We see
definitely.
Many different formats.
You don't have to go for a consultant.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Junaid also asked, did the recruiters help you with the CV at all? Did they give you suggestions or offer advice?
No, Terry. No, I didn't even ask either. Some offered some help with even with interviews or some CV writing, but not many. But I was happy with my CV format, and I knew whenever I applied for a job, the chances are that I would at least get a call from the recruitment consultant. So
sure.
I was happy with my format. So yeah, I wasn't particularly bothered about asking from recruitment agents.
Okay. Now look, we've touched on the first two here. I'm asking what avenues to employment did you follow? We've talked a bit about recruiters. They were very helpful for you. You applied directly to some companies without recruiters, did you?
I did, Terry. I did actually. There's a website called Apply Direct or something, but I haven't even touched that website for quite a while, maybe last 2 or 3 years. But I did apply for a number of jobs. but I don't remember, receiving much of a positive feedback from there.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yep. I think what we'll discover over the weeks is that everybody's experience can be quite different. So it's good to hear what you're saying tonight. Okay, Shabar Said has asked, any help LinkedIn brought to you, or is it useful? Did you use LinkedIn, or was it helpful?
I do use LinkedIn, but I haven't tried many jobs through LinkedIn, Terry. And I have got some connections, even recruiters, but in my experience, I haven't been able to go for an interview or find a successful job or interview through LinkedIn.
Okay, so just remind me, what year did you come to Australia in?
I came here in 2011, in August 2011.
Okay, so that's 4 years ago.
Yeah.
LinkedIn has changed quite a bit in those 4 years as well, so that's worth bearing in mind. So, Shabar, LinkedIn 4 years ago is not quite the same as what it is now. It's a little bit different, and it changes all the time. So, I think one thing I've also noticed with LinkedIn most recently is that they're trying to work out a way of making money from the service. You're getting less and less for free. And I would imagine that in a few months' time, everything on LinkedIn you're going to have to pay for. You don't get as many searches as you used to. Sometimes you don't get to see your first-generation contacts anymore. I mean, I use LinkedIn on a regular basis, and I've seen the transformation over the years, and it's always changing. Yep. Okay. Let's have another question from the floor. Okay. Madavi is saying, I've got local experience, but I'm still facing difficulty finding the right opportunity. Could you give some advice? It's a little bit hard without knowing more detail, but some people still struggle with local experience as well. Do you have any suggestions for those people?
Well, my suggestion would be, Terry, we need to, Madhavi needs to check her documentation, whether she has got a good covering letter, whether she has got the right CV, because the problem might be in there. If the CV, if the current, if the cover letter has, let's say, let's assume if the cover letter has a couple of grammar mistakes.
Yep.
Obviously, recruiters wouldn't be impressed. Even the CV, if it is not attractive enough, the recruiters wouldn't bother even calling you. So that is one thing Madhavi does have to check to see whether she's got the right documentation.
Excellent advice. That's brilliant advice.
Yeah, and then the other thing is I wonder if has she got any experience? Do you know, Terry? Any local experience? She said she does, right?
She has some local experience, but finding difficulty finding the right opportunities still. Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, we need to check whether she's applying for the right job. If she is applying for sort of a higher level job, I'm hoping that she will be applying for the right job for her. And if that is the case, and then she has to check documentation, as I was saying.
Yeah, I think that's.
And if she even
keep going.
Hasn't she got even any company, any agent interviews?
Madavi, if you want to answer that, have you had any interviews with agents? You could ask. I will wait for her to see if she replies to that one. Yeah. So, Madavi, have you had any interviews with agents? What bites are you getting, I suppose, is the question. Are you getting any leads at all, or is it absolutely nothing? Because if you're not getting anything, as Ryan said, there is a chance that your documents are not satisfactory. So, given that you have local experience, or, as Ryan said, you may be applying for the jobs that are not the right fit. Okay, just a couple of other questions that have come through. Chandra has said that Seek is also changing. This might fill LinkedIn's shoes. Yeah, all of these online services, job sites, they change on a weekly, daily basis. So keep up with them. They have new services, new ways of navigating them. new ways of networking and so on. So keep abreast of what's happening there. Okay, what's another one? Let's have a look. Does Ryan know of any overseas professional who has landed a job in the government sector? This is from Junaid.
Not in the government sector, Terry, but I do know a couple of people who has been able to find a job within weeks. In my current company, Dun& Bradstreet, my finance manager, she came here about 1 year ago, and she was able to join Dun& Bradstreet as finance manager in, I think, less than 2 weeks. She was from Japan.
Right. Okay.
So, and there was another person from India. She was able to join DNB as a financial accountant.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, within 1 or so months.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yep, good. Shabar has also asked on the resume issue, do you think it's fully read by the employer? Or what do they read if they do read it?
Well, I don't think the agents would read the full resume story. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But I get the feeling that they will, look at your front page, in your CV front page,
yep,
mainly. And if if the job agent recruiter is satisfied with your basics, and then he or she might go into further details in your CV.
Sure. Look, a couple of questions have come through about trying to find a friendly recruiter or somebody who is useful. So Domingo has asked about that. How do you find someone who's going to help you? Madavi has said, could you suggest any genuine agents? Now, as with anything, the quality of agents will vary. How do you find ones that will do the right thing by you and will work hard for you and have contacts?
Well, I will tell what I do. What I would usually do, if there is a job that I feel would be good enough for me, I apply. I mean, I tailor my CV. For each and every job before applying, I change my CV. You will have to do that. You will have to change your CV according to the position description advertised on CV. So you need to get your CV correct, and then you need to apply. And then once I apply for a job, and then the following day, I do that. Mostly I do that. I call that particular job agent. Right? Sometimes you wouldn't be able to even get through to the job agent, right? But more than 50% of time, there's a good chance that you will be able to talk to that job agent, and then you can have a sort of an telephone interview, and then the chances are then they would call you for a physical interview.
Yep. I think the personal touch is great. It's a really good suggestion is to make a call. It won't work all the time, but to make that call is a useful thing to do. Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, don't get disheartened. Sometimes you couldn't even go past the reception, right? Well,
yeah,
that could happen, right?
Yep.
But you have to keep trying. Yep.
Yep. Now Shabar has asked a question: do we need to get into certificate or diploma courses rather than only working with searching for jobs and facing rejections? So is studying going to help, do you think?
Provided you have, as I was saying, recognized local experience, Terry, it wouldn't be that hard. At Dun& Bradstreet, the internal auditor, she was from India, and she doesn't have any local, any qualification from Australia. She is a qualified chartered accountant in India, but she was able to join DNB as a manager level, which is a great achievement for her. So, but if you don't have, globally recognized qualifications or skill, studying here would definitely enhance your chances of finding a job.
Right. It may not guarantee it, but if you don't have the right qualifications or experience, it may help. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely it does.
Good. Okay. Let's have a look at some other questions. Mohammed Junaid has asked, he wants some helpful insights on interacting with Australians, some do's and don'ts, some cultural insights. We're going to get to this a bit later, but let's go for it now. In your workplace, tell us some do's and don'ts from a cultural
I didn't
perspective.
hear the connection sort of
It dropped out?
was, yeah. Could you please repeat,
I
Terry? I didn't
will.
hear what you said.
Yep. Junaid wants to know some do's and don'ts, so some cultural insights about Australian culture and interacting with Australians. What should you avoid and what is a good thing to do?
I wouldn't do anything differently, Terry. I mean, to me, everybody is the same. I mean, everybody. I mean, there wouldn't be. I mean, you wouldn't have to do anything, just because you are in Australia or just because they are Australians. Well, Australia is vastly a multinational country. I mean, I have worked for 3 workplaces in Australia. That is one crucial thing I have noticed. The workplaces are very much multicultural. So I mean, you wouldn't even feel that sometimes you are working in Australia, and I mean, people are so friendly. Just use your common sense and follow your instincts. You'll be good.
Chandra has suggested talk footy. They will fall for it all the time. Do you talk football at work?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say I do it. Even especially in winter, some people, talk about footy occasionally, and in summer, they talk about cricket. But they wouldn't. I mean, in my experience, they don't talk very. I mean, they don't talk much about footy or
Yeah, look,
cricket. I mean,
this can vary a lot from workplace to workplace, and there are some workplaces where they will talk footy non-stop. So, I mean, Chandra might have some.
I have heard that.
He might have Chandra might have some experience of this, so that's why he's saying they'll fall for it every time. So yeah, and Domingo said should talk about cricket. I mean, cricket is a common cultural tie we have with countries of the subcontinent. So again, it can be a useful icebreaker, and it's a safe topic as well. Sport is safe; it's not politics or religion. So you can't.
If you know either footy or cricket, the best thing is, Terry, as you were saying, that is a good talking point. That will help you, build relationship. That will help you network even within the organization. That will be small talk topic, in your day-to-day work.
Look, sometimes all you need is an interest as well in football. You don't have to feel like you know everything about the game. Now, I was talking to Junaid about this today. People feel good when they're asked for their advice or if they feel like an expert. Now, if you ask somebody a question about football, what happened in that decision last night, I didn't understand that. They will love telling you the answer because they're an expert, okay? So you don't have to feel like you know 100% about the game. Just have a think about, some questions you could ask somebody perhaps, yeah? Okay. Well, let's move on. You've given a little bit of advice about that. Now some people, finances are a little bit tough early on, and people need to take a survival job, whether that's cleaning, working in a 7-Eleven, driving a taxi, whatever. Did you have to do this to survive in your first 9 months?
Yeah, definitely. I had to, do a survival job. I was working with an electrician. That electrician is also from Sri Lanka, and he was installing solar panels.
Yep.
And I was working with him as a casual labor. I was working with him for about on and off 4 months. Yeah, it is very common, I would say. You have to. I mean, unless you are very, very lucky to find a job in a matter of weeks or so, then the chances are it's a must for you to do a survival job just to survive.
Sure.
That is very common.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay. Shabar has asked, my wife is a teacher and I am a banker. Who can get the job earliest? Who's got the best chance?
I would say Zubash himself, being a banker. I think there are enough opportunities even in banking sector. Yeah, I think he would fancy his chances. His wife does, I would say.
Okay. There may be other issues with teaching as well. For getting accreditation, you would need to visit the Victorian Institute of Teaching to make sure that you were actually qualified to teach in a Victorian school or in any state school, actually. Now, Junaid's just asking, did you need a certificate or license to work with the electrician?
No, I did not. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it is unacceptable or illegal, but I didn't have any certificate or anything, because it was a casual labor. I mean, I was just helping that guy, install panels. It was just a casual labor thing.
Yeah, I think
I didn't have any qualification.
Yep, that's fine. Okay, let's move on. What are the 3 things you've learnt in your first year, if you can go back to your first year, about Australia?
Well, I felt, how people think, even in Australia, there's very little difference. I mean, between Sri Lanka and Australia. I don't know, this might sound a bit strange, but in my working experience, people work very hard. They expect you to work very hard. Sometimes what we might be thinking when we are in our countries. Australians are very, very relaxed, sort of free sort of souls, and they don't work hard. They just take things lightly. But in my experience, they work very hard. If you want to get ahead, if you want to succeed in your professional life, and I mean, you have to work very hard, and that's what pay off end of the day.
Well, what about your relationship with your manager? Is that the same in Australia as it would be in Sri Lanka?
Well, other than, I mean, in Sri Lanka, we used to call I used to call my manager Mr. Plus, and if it was our chairman, we used to call Sir. But here we call everyone by their first name. That is by far the most significant difference. But when it comes to how people feel and how people interact with each other, that would be more or less the same.
But what about the allocation of work? So, for example, the way your manager might ask you to do something in Sri Lanka compared to the way it's asked to be done here, how much input you have about the direction of projects, is it the same or different?
That is about the same, Terry. That's about the same, and that's about the same. They want to know that you have enough work to fill your day, and
sure.
They would be naturally concerned about your outcome, and that'll be more or less the same in my experience.
Yep. Domingo has just asked, do you have a good relationship with your colleagues?
Yes, I do. I do have a good relationship with my working mates. We are in I work for finance, obviously, and then I work within finance. There's credit team, FP&A team, financial reporting, and transactional accounting team. That is where I work for, transactional accounting team. That comprises contract admin, banking, and AP.
Right.
So I work for the banking team, sub team, and I got 5 team members within my area, and we do have a very close-knit relationship.
So do you think that's just good luck, or have you worked hard at becoming a team member? What can you say about that?
It is hard work, Terry. It is hard work, and you cannot. I mean, I don't know whether it is just a DNB. In my experience, you have to work very hard. At least to survive, believe it or not. In our company, it is basically, hire and fire culture. No matter, you could be the chairman, you could be the director, you could be the manager. You might not be here tomorrow unless, you add value to the company. It is as simple as that. I have first-hand experience, but that's the name of the game. Work hard. I don't know whether it's the is the timing. Yeah,
Um,
provided you work hard and provided you deliver, you can survive.
Right.
Otherwise, it would be a very different game.
Yeah, Junaid has just made a comment about that. He said, Ryan, you're in the financial sector. How is the work-life balance? Like, when does a finance professional get off on an average day? You know, what time do you knock off? Is it a long day, other than the really busy closing and reporting times? So you mentioned your work is pretty tough. It's high stress. It's a higher fire environment. What do you have to say about work-life balance?
Yeah, I don't have any issues with the work-life balance really. Other than for maybe 2 or 3 days at the month end. I usually start my work at 8:30 and leave around 5:15. So yeah, I don't have to work till 6 or 7. So
But there is,
I have a very good work-life balance. Yeah.
you are aware of that pressure to perform, though, each day?
Sorry, Terry?
You are aware of the pressure to perform well each day. You have to do your job well, correct?
Yeah, definitely. That is one of the challenges in my job, Terry. I have to make sure 100% accuracy of what I do, and every day we have deadlines. Complete payments. So yeah, it's a pressure job. But then again, I've been doing that for more than 3 years, and I have improved quite a lot of things at my job. So I have made my life easier. You can use your skills. Especially, I have used my spreadsheet skills to improve my work. That has been immensely helpful for me. So yeah, that's up to you. I mean,
Yeah.
you should be smart enough to improve your work, and then that'll impress your manager, and then that'll help you get across.
Yeah.
It boils down to your skill and performance end of the day.
Just on that hire and fire environment, I received an email as a post basically from the CEO of a company, and they have a very strong policy of hire and fire. What they do is they run very, very brief interviews. This is an e-gateway company. They run very brief interviews. They hire, no problem hiring. They give the person a day. If they're not up to it and they don't fit in, they sack them. So this is the extreme. He's saying we just churn through a lot of people. It's very clear after a day's work whether they can do the job. I can't tell in half an hour or an hour of talking to someone whether they can do the job, so I employ them for a day. So this is a really interesting approach. I hadn't, I wasn't aware that this was happening in workplaces today. Okay, let's have a look at Domingo said, I didn't understand if Ryan get enough guidance to do a task or is just asked to do something with not enough guidance. So yeah, are you given much guidance? Do they help out, or they just expect you to know how to do everything?
You mean, is it at my job, Terry?
Yeah, during your job. When you're asked to do something, maybe it's something you haven't been, you're not familiar with or you haven't done before. Do you get guidance with a task, or they just say you expect you to do it?
Yeah, definitely I got guidance, Terry. Definitely I got guidance, because when I first started the job, the guy who was doing the job before me, he helped me for good, I think about nearly 2 weeks. He showed me how to do it, and we had documentation for each and every job, every task. They were helpful, and yeah, we definitely. I mean, I definitely got the guidance, and everybody was very helpful, and I didn't have any issues with that.
Yeah, okay. Look, Junaid has asked a really interesting question here. Do you feel an additional obligation to stay late or work on the weekends because of you being an overseas professional?
No, not at all, Junaid, not at all. But the thing is, what I have felt, quite frankly, Terry, people who work late, they are under the radar from your manager. Your manager will be happy, if you work after your working hours. I don't know.
So you said this is
Personally,
a positive thing or a negative thing to work late?
Depends on the manager, but Terry. But because I would say what should matter is your performance. If you perform your job, if you add value, if you improve your role, that should what matter.
Yeah.
But then again, surprisingly, sometimes if you work late, that could matter as well. But I don't personally agree with that at all.
No.
But
so some employers actually don't respect that. There's a thing called presentism, a concept. Have you heard of presentism? This is
no, I haven't.
It's the opposite of absenteeism. This is where you are present for the sake of being present, but you're no more productive. Okay, and some managers will see through that pretty easily. If you're not, cutting it, if you're not doing your job well, it doesn't matter how long you stay there. It's not going to impress somebody. So that's the concept of presentism. Let's have a look. Shabar has asked, how can we prove that we have a track record of XYZ performance unless we are called for an interview?
Well, that is where you need to present yourself smartly through your CV and cover letter. Because nobody can say that you'd be called upon for an interview, provided you get your documentation right and provided you have enough local experience. I would always say that there is a good chance that a job agent would be interested in your CV and would
I think
call you.
Yep.
But you have to keep applying.
I think it's really important. Some people forget what the word demonstrate means. So you have to demonstrate that you have done something. It's not enough just to describe what you are like, describe your attributes. You really have to be able to show what you've done through example. Otherwise, people don't get a clear picture of what you're capable of and what you have done. So that's really important too. Let's have a look. Shabar has said, as there are only online questions by the employers in their websites. Okay, so sometimes if you're applying through a portal, they'll ask you questions on their website and you may not get an opportunity to expand with your CV. So did you apply for any jobs through a portal where you had to just answer questions, Ryan?
I think I did maybe one or twice, Terry, but not many. But then again, it was about good 3.5 years ago when I initially started applying for jobs, but not recently.
Yep. Okay, we've got about 10 more minutes left. People are still posting questions. That's good. Junaid's just come back to the point of termination when I mentioned the hire and fire culture of one particular company. He's asked whether companies have to have a policy of notice, a period of notice before they terminate. That will be stated in your contract normally, and often there's a probation period which may allow them to get off the hook. I'm not quite sure how this company does it on a daily basis where they employ you for a day, whether it's as a casual perhaps. He didn't go into explain in detail what that was. Yeah. Okay, Shabar has asked another question. If I have been in a supervisory role for the past 10 years, is it a must that I will have to start at an entry level, or can I apply for a management or a supervisory role? Excellent question. What do you reckon about that, Ryan?
I think he should go for both, Terry. While applying for his supervisory type of jobs, there's no harm. I mean, he might have to try some entry-level jobs as well. Whatever comes his way, he need to grab it, and then that will help. That'll help him gather some local experience, and through that, that will enhance his chances of getting into the supervisory level sooner or later. But he doesn't have to, he doesn't have to apply only for supervisory jobs or only for entry levels. Go for both, and you never know, you might get a good job.
Yep. Junaid has asked, Okay, so we've made it to the interview. Any key tips to go further?
That is where I have had difficulties, July, to be quite frank with you, because recently, Terry, I have been to since December 2013, last year, I have been to 5 company interviews, all through job recruiters, job agents, but I have not been able to find the job.
Yeah.
That is a sort of question I'm also trying to figure out, because something must be wrong with myself too. I mean, never mind, I've been working for an Australian company for the last 3 or so years, but you know, I don't know.
Look, it's very competitive. That's one thing as well. I mean, for every job interview you go for, you're competing against people who may have done that exact job. It's not always your problem. Okay, if you are able to identify what it might be, that's good. Have you asked for any feedback from any of those interviews?
One recruiter had said that I didn't show much of an interest to that job, and that was one feedback.
How do you think they got that impression that you didn't have any interest in the job? What made them think that?
I don't have a clue, Terry, but I feel, you know, I need to improve my soft skills as well. You know, I'm all right with my, you know, my documentation. I'm all right with my technical skills to a greater extent, but I can definitely improve my, I mean, how I can present myself confidently. That is where personally I feel I'm not that good at. You know, that confidence factor is not there in me as far as I can feel. That is one area I'm also trying to improve if I'm to, you know, succeed in, you know, getting into the next job. So that's that, you know, soft skills, your interpersonal skills,
Sure.
They go a long way, and you need to seriously think about, you know, improving those aspects as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, at least you're aware of that. That's a start. So from that, you know, you might be able to work on that and make some changes. And keep persisting is good as well. Rejection is very difficult. Okay, it's human nature to feel bad when we are rejected, but you must keep fighting. You've got to get up again and keep trying, because if you stop trying, then nothing will happen. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, Maurizio has a question. Some professional certifications would help highlight a CV and increase the possibilities to get an interview. Can you think of any professional certifications in your situation?
Well, for us being finance guys, Terry, you know, if we have CPA qualification or a full member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia, then that will definitely help you get a better job. Yes, that is one thing I'm also trying to do.
Yeah.
I have completed 4 professional level subjects so far. So I need to complete another 2 subjects before I become a CPA. Yes, that will definitely enhance your chances of you know, getting a better job.
Yeah, I think the point you made earlier, though, is important as well, is that a lot of Australian employers value what you've done, and if you can show that your experience is solid, sometimes they overlook, you know, not having a certain qualification. Not if it's a prerequisite, of course. I mean, you can't get a job as an engineer if you don't have a Bachelor of Engineering. But I'm just saying that it's what you've done and being able to express that that's also very important as well. Yep. Okay, let's have a look. Let's move on to something else. I think we've talked a little bit about this, but do you feel like you fit in yet? You've been here quite a few years. What does it mean to fit in, and do you feel like you fit in?
I feel like, you know, I'm fitting in my workplace, but then again, you know, I do feel I need to, you know, improve my communication skill to a better extent. You know, that is one area I'm not entirely happy with. You know, how I communicate even at my workplace. You know, by nature, you know, I'm sort of a sort of a guy who prefers keeping a sort of a low profile. But what I do feel is, particularly in Australian workplaces, people like those who talk a lot. You need to communicate.
Yeah.
Your communication skills.
Sometimes
I feel
the workplace is an advantage if you are an extrovert. Sometimes the extroverts are not the best people at their job, but you're right. For the soft skills, those people who get out and talk and socialise, things are a little bit easier. So that's an interesting point you make there. Kalhara has just suggested that Melbourne Toastmasters might be a useful place for people to go to practice public speaking, which is a good tip. I will also be conducting professional workplace communication skills workshops starting in August, and next week I'll be running a webinar to explain how that will be delivered. So this will be for people, predominantly those who are already working in Australia but want to progress their careers, and they feel like that's being held back a little bit because of the lack of soft skills and the lack of being able to fit in, I guess, through fluent communication and confidence in the workplace as well. So you'll hear more about that as well. We'll have one more question from the floor, and then we're going to sort of wind up shortly. Junaid again has said, do you feel your family life, interaction with your wife or kids or whatever, has been worth the immigration thus far? This is a big life question.
Definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. I'm having such a good time. Good time with my kids. My kids, they just love their schooling here. This is one of the best decisions I have made. My decision to come here. That is one of the best decisions I have made in my life.
How old are your kids, Ryan?
Here, we have got the best.
Are they school age or preschool?
My kids, I have got 3 kids, and the 4th one is on the way. 6, 4, and 8 months.
Wow, you must be
all
busy.
Very busy. I get even busier when I come home. I get bombarded with questions. That's the best part. That's the best thing in our life.
That's incredible. What you will find too, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, is when your kids start primary school, all of a sudden you become more integrated into society as well, because you're brought into activities through the school and you make friends with parents, and it's one of the great ways that people start to feel like they belong in the new countries once your kids get to school age. So if you feel like things are tough and you've got little kids, under 4 years old, it does get a bit easier once they get past that older age, and you'll start to make a lot of friends. So that's a very good thing to look forward to if you're at that stage. Okay, we've pretty much come to the end. It's about 9 o'clock. I'm just going to advance through for a moment to the end. It's good that we had a lot of questions from the floor, because I think the conversation was a little bit more relevant than me just going through prepared questions. Before we thank Ryan, I just want to talk about what's going to happen at the next Meet Success session. The next one will be Srija Gadapalli, who is a research assistant. So I'll be sending out some information about this one coming up. So all you science types will have some questions for Srija, I'm sure, and also get the perspective from another person who's been through the immigration to settlement transition. So that one will be in 2 weeks' time on the 25th of June. And there'll be another one next week that I'll be running on the workplace communication skills. So I'll be talking more about that. So we'll leave that. Can we have the minutes of this discussion to remember the key points discussed? Shabazz Sayed. Yeah, what happened is this has been recorded. Okay, so you'll hear my voice and Ryan's voice on a recording and all of the slides that we went through. I will post that to a place on the web. I'll give you a link to it, and you can get access to that as well. So Thank you. Everybody's saying thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Okay. Someone has said, good to hear St Kilda is doing better than last season. Thank you, Chandra. I'm glad you remembered I'm a St Kilda supporter. I went to see them get killed by Hawthorn on the weekend, which was a little bit sad. But we have a good team of young kids, and they'll be good in a few years' time. Good to see you, Chandra, and hope all's going well for you. Thank you, Ryan. That was wonderful. I think you've given an excellent impression of your experience, and that combined with the other ones that we're going to see in the upcoming weeks, it's really giving a full impression of the whole immigration process and the difficulties and the success, which is what this is all about, of eventually people finding work. So thank you very much, Ryan.
Yeah. The pleasure has been all mine, Terry. It was good to be with you guys, and it was good to talking to you.
Thank you very much. So we'll say good night and sleep well. It's not too late. You can go and lie down, watch a bit of TV or read a book or whatever you do. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Stay tuned. If there's anybody out there who feels like they have a good story to tell, similar to Ryan's experience or very different to Ryan's experience, please email me and we can talk about if you'd like to present as well. So that's all for this evening. Good night, everybody, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully.
Good night, everybody. See you.
Good night.